For decades, we've been told the pyramids were tombs built by ancient Egyptians using copper tools and brute labor around 2560 BCE. Textbooks repeat it, museums display it, documentaries reinforce it. But Hancock isn't buying it. Not anymore. The official story doesn't just have holes, Hancock argues. It's built on quicksand. He's spent years investigating ancient sites worldwide, and what he's discovered challenges everything mainstream archaeology claims about human history. The scale alone raises red flags. The Great Pyramid contains 2.3 million limestone blocks, some weighing 80 tons, transported from quarries 500 miles away. If built in 20 years as claimed, workers would need to place one block every 2 to 3 minutes, 24 hours a day, without stopping. No weekends, no delays, just relentless, machine-like precision from a civilization that supposedly hadn't discovered the wheel. Hancock sees something mainstream scholars refuse to acknowledge: evidence of a lost civilization that predated the Egyptians by thousands of years. A civilization with advanced knowledge, sophisticated engineering, and possibly global reach. And the pyramids? They might be the inheritance left behind. If you're ready to hear evidence that could rewrite history books, make sure you subscribe, because Hancock's revelations will challenge everything you thought you knew about ancient Egypt. Graham Hancock didn't start as an ancient mysteries investigator. He began as a respected journalist, writing for The Economist and The Times, covering current affairs and international politics. But in the 1990s, he made a hard turn that would define his career and make him one of the most controversial figures in alternative archaeology. His 1995 book, Fingerprints of the Gods, flipped the script on everything we thought we knew about early human history. The core idea? That a highly advanced civilization existed before all known ancient cultures, and after being wiped out by cataclysm, passed down its knowledge to survivors. The pyramids, he argued, are part of that inheritance. Since then, Hancock has doubled down with works like Magicians of the Gods, America Before, and the Netflix series Ancient Apocalypse. Each one has fueled both his popularity and his critics' fury. Because Hancock doesn't just suggest we might be missing something, he flat out accuses the academic world of willful ignorance. He believes archaeologists have become gatekeepers of a rigid narrative that leaves no room for alternative views or data that doesn't fit their timeline. Whether you see him as visionary or troublemaker, Hancock has tapped into something real, the sense that the official story doesn't quite add up. He's asking questions millions secretly wonder but feel unqualified to voice. And his biggest, boldest question echoes across the Giza Plateau. Who really built the pyramids? Let's examine the version taught in schools. The Great Pyramid was supposedly built during Pharaoh Khufu's reign around 2560 BCE by tens of thousands of workers using copper tools, sledges, ropes, and raw manpower over 20 years. Hancock finds this explanation fundamentally flawed. The logistics alone seem impossible. Many granite blocks came from Aswan, over 500 miles away. How were they moved without wheels or iron tools? Egyptologists reference sledges and barges, but Hancock finds that explanation more magical than mechanical. Then there's the time constraint. Placing 2.3 million blocks in 20 years means one block every few minutes, continuously, without errors or weather delays. Think about that, Hancock points out. That's not just impressive engineering. That's supernatural precision from people who supposedly hadn't even invented the wheel. What really troubles Hancock is the complete absence of construction plans or schematics. Ancient Egyptians left behind receipts for grain, tax records, and thousands of religious texts, but no architectural drawings for humanity's most ambitious building project. That's not just odd, Hancock argues. It's as if the pyramid just appeared, already perfect. The tool problem bothers him too. According to mainstream theory, builders used copper chisels to cut granite, one of Earth's hardest materials. Copper is soft. Granite is not. Modern stonemasons with diamond-tipped tools struggled to achieve the precision seen inside the Great Pyramid. How did ancient workers with primitive tools create perfectly smooth chambers with laser-like accuracy? Walk inside the Great Pyramid and you'll find something peculiar. Nothing. No hieroglyphics, no religious art, no intricate carvings. Just massive, cold, empty stone. This troubles Hancock deeply. Most Egyptian tombs, even those of minor officials, overflow with decoration celebrating the deceased's life and journey to the afterlife. But the Great Pyramid, supposedly the final resting place of Egypt's most powerful pharaoh, completely bare. For what was supposedly a royal tomb, it's suspiciously minimalist, Hancock observes. This doesn't match the culture or practices of the time. If this was really Khufu's monument, where's the celebration of his legacy? The silence inside the pyramid speaks louder than any inscription could. It suggests the structure served a different purpose than burial, or was built by people with different priorities than the hieroglyphic-obsessed Egyptians we know from history. Then there's the alignment. The Great Pyramid is oriented to true north within 3/60ths of a degree, more precisely than many modern structures. Without GPS, lasers, or telescopes, how did ancient builders achieve this? Hancock sees this as evidence that the pyramid's architects possessed knowledge far beyond what should have existed in 2500 BCE. Whether through astronomical observation or inherited wisdom from an earlier culture, someone knew exactly what they were doing. Hancock's case gets stronger with geology. He draws heavily on work by Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist from Boston University who shocked academia with his analysis of the Great Sphinx. Schoch observed deep vertical erosion patterns on the Sphinx's body, the kind typically caused by heavy rainfall, not desert winds. Here's the problem. The Giza Plateau has been arid for 5,000 years. The rain erosion visible on the Sphinx would require sustained wet weather, likely before 10,000 BCE, when the Sahara was still lush and green. That would make the Sphinx, and potentially the pyramids, thousands of years older than textbooks claim. Hancock takes this further. If the Sphinx predates Egyptian civilization, then the entire Giza complex might belong to a much earlier timeline. Maybe the Old Kingdom pharaohs didn't build the pyramids. Maybe they just inherited them, adding finishing touches and taking credit for monuments that had stood for millennia. After all, ancient Egyptians were known for renovating and reinscribing older temples. Why not do the same with the pyramids? But geology is just one piece. Hancock also dives deep into astronomy, where things start sounding like science fiction. Until you realize how precise the alignments are. The three pyramids at Giza aren't randomly placed. Their layout matches the three stars in Orion's belt, a constellation central to ancient Egyptian mythology. But here's the twist. The alignment works best not for 2500 BCE, but for around 10,500 BCE, when Orion's belt would line up perfectly with the ground layout. This Orion correlation theory, introduced by Robert Bauval and expanded by Hancock, suggests the Giza pyramids were designed to mirror the stars at a time far earlier than Egyptian civilization supposedly existed. Skeptics argue this is cherry-picking, that you can make anything align with stars if you try hard enough. But Hancock counters that the alignments are too precise to be coincidental. Not just at Giza, but at ancient sites worldwide, from Stonehenge to Angkor Wat, similar astronomical connections emerge. These weren't just monuments, Hancock argues. They were celestial maps, encoded with knowledge of the skies. And if early civilizations were capable of star mapping at this level, we've seriously underestimated their sophistication. Then came the discovery that validated everything Hancock had been saying: Gobekli Tepe in Turkey. Discovered in the 1990s and dated to at least 9,600 BCE, it's now the oldest known megalithic site in the world. Older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, older than anything we thought ancient humans could build. What's shocking about Gobekli Tepe isn't just its age, but its sophistication. Massive carved stone pillars, astronomical alignments, and symbolic carvings, all from a time when humans were supposedly just hunter-gatherers. No evidence of agriculture, no cities, no writing, yet somehow monumental architecture existed. To Hancock, this was the smoking gun. Gobekli Tepe proves complex culture and intelligence existed in deep prehistory, long before civilization's official start. And if such a culture existed in Turkey, who says it didn't exist elsewhere? This leads to Hancock's core argument. Around 12,800 years ago, Earth suffered a major disaster, possibly a fragmented comet impact known as the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. This sudden climatic shift caused massive flooding, temperature swings, and likely collapsed any advanced societies that existed. If true, this explains why recorded history appears to begin suddenly around 3000 BCE, because everything before that was lost. Only fragments remained. Only the strongest structures survived. And the pyramids? They might be those survivors. Walk into the Great Pyramid's internal chambers, and you'll see something that looks oddly modern. Perfectly straight lines, razor-thin joints, and polished granite surfaces that appear machine-cut. In the king's chamber, massive granite blocks were stacked with such precision that you can barely fit a razor blade between them. These aren't rough-cut boulders. They're precisely shaped and expertly placed. The official explanation: copper chisels and pounding stones. Hancock finds this laughable. Modern researchers who've tried replicating the process achieved disappointing results. Carving granite with copper tools is not only painfully slow, it's virtually impossible to achieve the smooth, flat, polished surfaces seen inside the pyramid. At sites like Baalbek in Lebanon, single stones weigh over 1,000 tons. The largest known cut stone block in the world sits in a quarry there, and no one knows how ancient people intended to move it. No modern crane could lift it. So how did they do it? Hancock argues we're either grossly underestimating their capabilities or missing evidence of lost technology. And this pattern appears worldwide. In Peru, at Sacsayhuaman, gigantic stone walls feature interlocking blocks carved in irregular shapes, fitted without mortar, still standing after centuries of earthquakes. These stones don't just fit. They lock like jigsaw puzzles with internal angles and curves. The craftsmanship is so advanced that modern engineers still argue over the methods. And local tradition says the Inca didn't build these walls, they found them. Hancock ties this together by pointing to a pattern. Precision stonework seen in Egypt mirrors techniques in Peru, Bolivia, and Southeast Asia. Across continents and supposedly disconnected cultures, you see the same mysterious fingerprint: massive stones, perfect fits, inexplicable techniques. Mainstream scholars attribute this to parallel development, different cultures independently solving similar problems. But Hancock pushes back. The precision, scale, and engineering knowledge are too much to dismiss as primitive ingenuity. Some researchers propose that acoustic levitation, vibration-based cutting, or manipulation of magnetic fields might explain how ancient builders moved and shaped massive stones. That might sound fringe, but the fact remains, no one can fully explain these monuments using only the tools assigned to their time period. To skeptics, this sounds like pseudoscience. To believers, it's the key to an untold chapter of human history. And to everyone else, it's a rabbit hole almost impossible not to fall into. Because whether or not you accept the theories, there's a growing list of unanswered questions that traditional archaeology doesn't address satisfactorily. Hancock doesn't just ask questions, he brings evidence. Using modern technology like ground-penetrating radar and LiDAR, researchers have uncovered what appears to be vast, unexplored ruins worldwide. In Egypt, beneath the sands around Giza, radar scans show underground chambers and subterranean anomalies yet to be excavated or explained. Hancock suggests these hidden structures could predate the visible pyramids entirely. Then there's underwater evidence. Off Yonaguni, Japan, divers discovered what looks like a massive submerged pyramid structure with steps, platforms, and carved features. Hancock, who's personally dived the site, is convinced it's artificial. If true, it's at least 10,000 years old, dating to when sea levels were lower and Yonaguni was dry land. There's also the Bimini Road in the Bahamas, a line of large, flat stones underwater that some believe are remnants of an ancient roadway. Hancock sees these as possible remnants of coastal cities swallowed by rising seas after the last ice age. Then there are ancient maps showing too much knowledge. The Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513, appears to depict Antarctica's coastline without ice. Geological studies indicate Antarctica's coast was last ice-free around 6,000 to 12,000 years ago. How could a 16th century mapmaker know that unless someone much older mapped it first? Hancock argues this suggests forgotten global cartographic knowledge preserved from a prehistoric culture that explored the world long before modern empires. But one of Hancock's strongest pieces of evidence isn't physical, it's cultural. Across dozens of ancient civilizations, there are myths of a great flood, of sky gods arriving from the sea, of lost lands and advanced beings who brought knowledge of farming, astronomy, and building. These stories appear in Mesopotamia, Mesoamerica, India, Egypt, and Polynesia, often sharing eerily similar themes. To Hancock, this isn't coincidence, it's memory, a fragmented mythologized account of a global catastrophe that wiped out an earlier high civilization. Survivors, he believes, may have seeded their knowledge among hunter-gatherers they encountered, which would explain the sudden appearance of advanced architecture and astronomy in supposedly primitive cultures. None of this is ironclad proof. Hancock admits that. But his point is this: if so many unrelated data points, underwater ruins, unexplained alignments, technological anomalies, ancient maps, flood myths, all point in the same direction, isn't that worth investigating? Isn't that enough to justify asking better questions? At this point you might wonder, why isn't academia even willing to consider these ideas? The resistance Hancock faces isn't just about facts, it's about control of the narrative. Academic archaeology operates within a tightly controlled ecosystem of tenure tracks, publishing rules, grant funding, and peer-reviewed journals. To be taken seriously, you must play by the rules, cite the right sources, publish in approved journals, and stay inside accepted boundaries. Graham Hancock? He kicked the door off its hinges. He's a journalist, not a trained archaeologist, which automatically puts him on the outsider list. Instead of quietly submitting papers, He writes best-selling books, speaks to millions, and produces documentaries. To academia, that's not research. That's entertainment. Worse, it's dangerous entertainment that shakes the historical timeline foundation, and academics hate that. For many scholars, Hancock isn't just wrong. He's insulting their life's work. They've spent decades piecing together the past based on scientific methodology. Here comes an outsider, challenging it all with ideas about lost civilizations and ancient advanced technology. There's also fear of opening floodgates to conspiracy theories. Academics say they're protecting the field from pseudoscience. But Hancock argues this defensiveness goes too far. Instead of investigating his evidence, they dismiss him outright, labeling him a pseudo-archaeologist. Hancock keeps asking, why not test these claims? He's not demanding belief, just a fair examination. If Hancock is even partially right, the implications are staggering. The neat linear story we've been told, civilization starts in Mesopotamia, flows through Egypt and Greece to Rome, ending with us, falls apart completely. It gets messier, older, and more mysterious. We might not be the first advanced civilization. We might be the second or third act, standing on the ruins of something lost. That's not just history. It's psychological. It forces us to reconsider humanity's place in the cosmic timeline. Hancock's work suggests that human civilization might not be linear, but cyclical, rising, falling, and slowly rebuilding. Knowledge gained, lost, and rediscovered across vast spans of time. The pyramids might not just be tombs or temples. They might be messages from a lost world, built to last, waiting to be decoded by a future generation, capable of understanding them. Whether you buy Hancock's theory or not, his work forces us to question everything we think we know. The pyramids speak across millennia, urging us to look deeper, think bigger, and stay curious. They remind us that history isn't fixed. It's a story still unfolding.